Did y'all see the updated Willy Wonka that came out a while back here? It has Timothée Chalamet in it. That always sounds like wine to me. I'll have the Chalamet. Sounds very pretentious. I don't think that dude's pretentious. So I think he's a good actor. I liked him in Dune as well. This is a tough role for a guy like Timothée Chalamet because he's like a heartthrob. I think that's the idea at any rate. But if you're going to play Willy Wonka, you have to be whimsical and ridiculous. And I think it's hard to properly do both of those things at the same time. But he tried. It was pretty good. I found the music to be a little bit forgettable, except I think there were a couple songs that maybe stood out a bit. There's the one with the guy from Downton Abbey, the one about washing clothes, scrubbing things. And then there's the opener song, which I thought was really catchy and fun. I thought everybody did a great job on it. It's the I Want song. It's the establish the world and the trajectory of the story song. Most musicals have them. And I don't know what the name of it is, but it's about having a bunch of silver sovereigns in his pocket and a hat full of dreams. I think that might be it. I got 12 silver sovereigns in my pocket, and I also have a hat and some things. Oh, pocket and chocolate. I bet he rhymes pocket with chocolate. And there's something else and something about chocolate. And I also have a hat and some silver sovereigns. It's basically like that. But with each passing thing, he, because of naivete or generosity, he keeps giving away the silver sovereigns, which are representative of, I think, his whole life savings. And then as we get down toward the end of the song, he's pretty much totally out. I don't even know if silver sovereigns are a thing, by the way. The gold sovereign is a super, super famous coin, like a 600-year-old super famous coin with a bunch of cool iterations. There's one from around the time of Napoleon that has St. George and the Dragon on it. Very cool gold coin, but that thing would be worth like $500 a pop just on raw gold value. I don't know how much a silver sovereign is worth. I don't even know if that's actually a thing, but in the show, that's what he's got. He's got the silver sovereigns. He gets down to the last one. I'm not going to spoil much of anything. This is all in the opening number. He's very poor now, and he's thinking about just staying outside in the cold because he can't even afford a hotel room now. But someone who is very obviously to the audience predatory comes up and he's like, "You look pretty poor there." And Timothée Chalamet, Willy Wonka, is like, "I am pretty poor, but I'm optimistic anyway because I got a hat full of dreams." And the guy's like, "Well, I just happen to know a place that you could stay." And as an audience member, you're like, "No, don't do it. The guy's predatory. They're going to cheat you out of your labor and your last sovereign. Don't do it. Don't fall for it." And of course, the plot wouldn't work if he didn't fall for it. He has to fall for it. So he goes and he falls for it. And you immediately loathe this innkeeper lady and her sort of crush or man tool that she uses to do her evil bidding, because they would take advantage of somebody who's poor and vulnerable and is just trying to do good things. That is the vibe of Nehemiah chapter 5, except without any of the singing. When Nehemiah becomes aware of the economic injustice that is happening here and that people are being economically predatory toward their own brothers and sisters, their fellow returning exiles, Nehemiah is very angry. It goes like this. So we talked the last couple of days about the 3 complaints that get increasingly horrible in nature. And then Nehemiah 5:6, it says, "When I heard their outcry and these charges, I was very angry. I pondered them in my mind and then accused the nobles and officials. I told them, 'You're exacting usury from your own countrymen,'" usury, or that is interest. And indeed, as a reader of Nehemiah, who is encountering all of this through the lenses of Nehemiah, he's your point of view character and your narrator, you're supposed to be outraged too, in the same way you were watching the opening number of Wonka, because it's really easy from a distance to see predatory people who act all nice and caring. "I would be delighted to help you, poor, unfortunate souls." That whole routine, you can tell when you're looking at it from a distance. And like Nehemiah, it is supposed to be infuriating when you see it going down. But on the other hand, if you're anything like me as a modern reader, that outrage is a little bit tempered when you get to that last line and you're like, well, that's all they're doing? They're just collecting interest? I mean, this is pretty normal. People collect interest. Everybody collects interest. I collect interest from my bank. They give me free money because I leave my money in their custody. Am I collecting usury? Am I bad? Should Nehemiah be angry at me? Am I like the dirty innkeeper lady in Wonka? I don't want to be like the dirty innkeeper lady in Wonka. But when we go and dig around a little bit in the Old Testament, we discover that this really was an outrage because you couldn't do it. It was explicitly forbidden in the Bible. Everybody knew this wasn't supposed to happen. And the fact that it was happening was a demonstration that, wait a minute, we haven't learned anything. What are you all doing? You're not understanding the moment. You're not understanding the point. This is the kind of little stuff, death by inches, Nehemiah probably imagined, that got us into the messes we've been in over the centuries in the first place. We just fudge a little bit here. We're a little bit opportunistic here, a little bit of idolatry here. And now we're doing it again at a time when we have a chance to put it all together. What are you idiots doing? And you do not have to be a Bible genius or know a lot about anything to be able to find the relevant passages around the Old Testament. I use this primitive, old, not that complicated sort of study Bible that I have here on my desk. It doesn't have a lot of notes. It doesn't have a lot of stuff. But even this study Bible has got the obvious references to usury or lending with interest and all of that stuff from around the Old Testament. So we're just going to go look at that real quick and see what Nehemiah would be remembering from the scriptures about this practice. Remember, Nehemiah is a very Bible-y guy. So much of what he says and does and quotes and prays is all from different parts of the Bible. All right, Exodus 22:25. I am right there. Here we go. It says, "If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, do not be like a moneylender. Charge him no interest. If you take your neighbor's cloak as a pledge, return it to him by sunset, because his cloak is the only covering he has for his body. What else will he sleep in? When he cries out to me, I will hear, for I am compassionate." So what this tells me is that pawn shop would not be a viable business under the law of the Old Testament. And that's pretty good, right? Because there's a lot of people, it's sort of fashionable on the internet to look at how the Old Testament was and be like, oh, it's so backwards and bad. But that is so dang anachronistic. It's one of the criticisms of the Bible that really agitates me. It's mean to women. Are you kidding me? This is the most forward-thinking document in the history of ever regarding its attitude toward the value of women and the value of oppressed and marginalized people and the value of the slave. And here we are, 3,500-ish years ago in the book of Exodus, and we're getting lending policies that are frankly more justice-oriented than the lending policies we have in the United States of America. And before some of you are like, yeah, because of dirty businesses. Well, who wrote the laws that let the dirty businesses do that stuff? That's right. It's the government who the dirty businesses pay. You can handle a corrupt government. You can handle corrupt business. But when they start working together, really bad things happen for normal people. What we're seeing here in Exodus is better lending policy for the poor than what we have in this country today. Now, this is enormously progressive and human rights oriented. But also the tone of all of this stuff in the Old Testament, it's very, hey, let's stand back to back here. It acknowledges this is happening in the Bronze Age and in the Iron Age, in a time where everything was very tribal with chieftains and local deities, patron gods, etc. If you can defeat someone else, you're going to defeat someone else. And so the idea here is you are a unique people group set apart. You are not an accident. You're not just one more club of people migrating around on your nomadic route, picking berries and stabbing water buffalo and stuff and getting by. You guys are special. You are promise carriers of the work of God. You are covenant people. You are a nation of priests. This is a big deal. And you just can't be burning each other. You can't be destroying each other, biting each other, devouring each other. And you can't be putting in place seemingly very friendly, innocuous, harmless, just the marginal clerical fees, operational fees kind of policies to gradually siphon money off of people and to create a subservient class through subtle, gradual, glacial, creeping economic oppression that over the course of generations would completely wreck the majority of society. The spirit of all of that is being violated by what's happening in Nehemiah chapter 5, and Nehemiah is rightly outraged. This is a longer conversation than just one thing, so we're going to split it very neatly into two parts. I'm just going to keep going right now, but you're not going to be able to tell that totally because I'm just have Jeff play some little music or something, and it'll be like, oh, it's the end of the episode, and then tomorrow it'll just start right back up, and this will be like a two-parter, back to back. You should listen to them together. It'll be great that way. Okay, More on Nehemiah's justified outrage and the stuff he was seeing in the scriptures that would cause him to feel that outrage next time around. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.